thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
I'm Julie Tenner.
And we have created this space because we feel so strongly that there's something missing for mothers. It's really a space that we want to provide to allow us and you to peel back the layers and to really nurture the soul that we have deep inside, that yearning we have to be authentically us and show the world the beauty that we have inside, that we all possess. It's really a space to explore all facets of what motherhood looks like, the belief systems that have been handed down to us on what motherhood is, and really unpack our own individual journeys and create a space for nurturing and growth. Our children are inviting us every day to go into that space of looking into who we are and connecting more deeply with ourselves. And when we can do that for ourselves and for our children, there's such beauty and growth that comes from that path.
Oh my gosh, I think I just want to give you a clap. That was just so spot on the money. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to go from there. That was exactly why we're here, and just so beautifully spoken, Bridget. Well done, you. So we might start maybe just by saying we really wanted to set the space up because there was we felt like there was a big gap for mothers in particular of missing really deep, rich connections with a community of women, because it is, as our true feminine nature is about connection with ourselves, connection with our souls, connection with our children, and most definitely connection with our tribe, our circle that we have around us. So we feel that there is a huge lack now, particularly for mums, and particularly also if you're a working mum who's rushing in and out of school and in and out of kinder, there's not a huge amount of connection and opportunity to really delve deep, feel deep, and I don't know, move through your stuff in a really supported way. So we really wanted to offer that space up, didn't we?
Absolutely.
So ultimately why we're here is to each week offer you topics that we pull apart in very unique ways, that it might speak very deeply to your soul or to your heart, or it might just sit somewhere or resonate with you, and that you might pull that advice out later down the track. Ultimately, we really want to head towards this being a community space on the Facebook, where there is a support group there that can, contact each other and, talk about all these topics. And then we want to move into really offering a physical space of a women's retreat, where we really hold the space for women to come together and very deeply move into each of their topics of their femininity, their womanhood, their motherhood, and really connecting back with their soul's purpose and joy in life, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's really about taking some time out, giving ourselves permission to really connect deeply, because it's not something that we tend to do in the pace of our everyday lives, especially when we're trying to be all things to all people and hold a family together, which is such an enormous responsibility. I think particularly so when there's so many demands pulling us in so many different directions all the time.
Yeah, totally. So maybe we start with our stories. Do you want to talk about your story, Bridget, and how you've got here?
Yeah, I'd love to. I guess a good place to start is how Jules and I met, which was in fact at a playgroup, which is one of those perfect places where you begin to find your tribe in motherhood. And it was really a playgroup that helped me find my tribe of like-minded mothers and really find that connection that I was so desperately seeking when motherhood is thrust upon you and you're, previously this independent working woman, kind of doing whatever you want, to having a very, very dependent baby. And Jules was absolutely this shining light in that time in my life, and it's been a beautiful connection to have since then. But yes, I'm Bridget, and I have a 2-year-old son, and motherhood has offered me so much. I say to people often that I feel like I've grown more in the past 2 years than I have in the past 10. It's really
so true.
Asked so much of me and given me so much in return. I think like anything, those biggest challenges, that kind of border of support and challenge that you find yourself on the journey of motherhood, really opens you up to so much growth if you're willing to go there. And fortunately I was, and I am most of the time, as uncomfortable as it may be sometimes. And so my background is as a professional woman working in digital communications, and I have also recently started my own business, really creating a space to bring together businesses and community around messages of wellness and conscious living, exploring that through films and film topics. And I run those events at the moment down in Melbourne, and that's been a really lovely space as well to connect with, you know, what kind of my soul journey is, which I really feel is being a bridge to understanding, and kind of unpacking some of the topics that might be at odds with mainstream thinking, and allowing others to be held in a space that allows that conversation to happen.
Yes. Let's just say they are extraordinary. I have to say, Bridget's movie nights, I think, are just amazing. So she has them in a private theatre. So they're really private, independent documentaries, aren't they, on various conscious living and health topics, and sometimes even parenting topics. And the documentaries are extraordinary. I love how you set it up. She always has a room full of professionals with all sorts of different, I don't know, products and services that mostly relate to the movie that you're going to see. Then you watch the movie, and then after the movie there's a panel of experts that Bridget's put together for a Q&A at the end, which is always just fascinating. I absolutely completely love the whole process. So if you're wanting to, I think, really connect to a tribe of like-minded souls, if you're really interested in the off-the-beaten-track documentaries that you're not going to see screened anywhere else, then Suburban Sandcastles is definitely the place to look at that, and I would really say go, because once you go, you're hooked. I go every month. I'm addicted.
And I must say too that it's about a willingness to be challenged as well, because I really didn't want them to be spaces just to continually support our values, you know, and kind of say that our way is the right way, because that's certainly not what I'm setting out to do either. I'm really setting out to say, okay, this is what I'm offering up, and really welcome discussion around that and be challenged, because, you know, as I said about motherhood, it's really that border of support and challenge that offers us the most opportunity to grow. The educator, Marilyn Wilhelm, I was watching one of her fantastic old YouTube clips last night, and she said, you know, we don't learn from listening to what we know, we learn from what we don't know. And so when we offer ourselves up opportunities to explore what we don't know, there's just it's when you come alive, or it's when I come alive, certainly.
That's so profound, because that is so dead on, isn't it? You don't change if you just stick with what you know.
Yeah. And as much as we might seek, and most of us do, we constantly try and seek support. It's our natural inclination. It's our sort of human function. But when you can kind of get that sweet spot between that support and challenge, it's when you really feel like, oh, I'm alive, you know. It's a great spot to find when you can get it. So, but that's enough about me. Over to Jules.
I love it. About me, let's see. I have 3 children. I have a 9-year-old son, a 7-year-old daughter, and then a 21-month-old daughter, so a big gap, and then a baby again. So it's been a really big journey for me in motherhood to move through boys and girls, but then also to come full circle back to babyhood again when I was well and truly past that. So that's been massive and challenging, and I can't wait to pull some of that stuff apart with everyone along the journey. Aside from that, professional me, pre-kids, I'm a naturopath, and I specialised in paediatrics and pregnancy and birth. And then I trained to be a doula after the birth of my second child. So a doula is a birth attendant, so an independent woman that you choose to hire to work with you like an independent midwife, but without the midwifery medical side attached to it. Really, she's there to honour and support that woman's choices and journeys, pull apart any scars or healing or emotional journeys that she needs to be as ready as she can be to give birth in whatever form that comes in. And so then I trained with that with Rhea Dempsey, and then combined my naturopathy experience with the doula experience into naturopathic birth, which is what I have been doing for, just over 7 years now. So that's me, really. That's what I was doing. And now I have this third child who's incredibly challenging, and I'm not sure what my next journey is. And here we are. I really think it's soul support for women, because that's what I need.
And it's beautiful, isn't it? Because ultimately, you know, we really teach what we need to know, and that's kind of also why we've created this space, because for us, we're on this journey and we feel so strongly that there must be other women who are on this journey too, and who want to feel a part of something with like-minded people, or not, you know, or other people who are just wanting to take bits and pieces of what we say and kind of chuck the rest, which I'm cool with too, you know. Like, it's really about kind of finding what resonates for you and finding a tribe and willing to be open and challenged and supported and all of those beautiful things. I can't wait till we get to the episodes around pregnancy and birth, and really, because Jules has so much wisdom to offer there. Like, the conversations that we've had over the past however long have been quite profound, and she has so much to offer in that space.
Thanks.
So we're just kind of chomping at the bit to get stuck into this stuff. So perhaps we'll give a little bit of an overview of some of the topics that we're planning to unpack, and then perhaps we might just even delve into one of them briefly.
Yeah, I really want to treat this like an online or virtual version of what we want to do in our retreats. So really, what I would really love women to come out of with our retreats is just a deep, resonating satisfaction with who they are, a reconnection with their deeply divine, sacred, sensual, feminine energy that I feel is so much dampened in this society now, particularly I think post-feminine era. Well, I just think there's been suppression of women over so many hundreds of thousands of years, haven't there? And we can talk about all of the archetypes of women and where we've come from, and the witches and the healers and the spiritual priestesses and all of that jazz, and then we come through the witch burnings and the shutting down and the paganism that's stopped with various other religions, and then we can move into industrialized era and womanly arts like giving birth, and then moved into a hospital where again women are contained and shut down and disempowered, and then we can talk about even pre that corsets and women being pulled and squished and fitted to make sure that they stay put.
Yes.
And then, you know, so many generations of women just being layer after layer shut down. And I really think there's such a deep disconnection with our divine feminine now that we don't know really deeply how to be and really own our deep sensuality, our deep connection with our sexuality, our sex drives, even in a really sensual format, not in this crazed shades of grey, I don't even know, having intercourse with everyone that walks past kind of way. I feel like there's such a disconnect with our sacred feminine. We've moved so much into the masculine and honouring of, you know, power and having it all and being it all and doing it all, that we've forgotten the divine sensuality of sitting in such power, which is the feminine space. You know, women who are incredibly in touch with who they are, they own their story, they own their sensuality, they just, I don't know, you know, those women, they just resonate such glorious beauty that it is so powerful but so unspoken that you can't help but have reverence and respect and want some of it. And I want women to walk out of a retreat loving themselves again, loving their bodies, loving their souls, loving their journeys, loving their lives again.
And really, I think making, you know, the ultimate space to get to really is love and gratitude for all that we are. You know, it's almost like our life is taking us along the journey of loving exactly who we are, where we are, without wanting to change anything. You know, and when we can get to that point, and of course we're always wanting to grow, and that might only be a glimpse of that, but when we can see how everything in our life has served us, then we free ourselves from living in a space of gain or loss, you know, or looking back, you know, at what we missed out on. You know, it's about kind of really taking ourselves on a journey of seeing how much everything has served us to create who we are today, and how much we have offered and given to the world and those around us just by being who we are, because ultimately we all have something beautiful to offer, and we are all doing it in every moment, even if we're not seeing it. So we really want to create that space to allow women to see that and feel that, and ultimately build that deeper sense of love for who they are.
Yes, that's exactly what we want. I would love for someone to walk into one of our retreats feeling a bit of a shambles, like they've lost themselves by degrees over their years of parenting or whatever it is, and they're not sure who they are or what they love or enjoy, and walk out of that retreat going, I just feel amazing. I love my story. I love who I am, and I'm willing now to share those gifts with this world. And it's through those gifts and connections that we are inspired.
Absolutely. And we're also not going to we don't want to sell you some kind of story that we have all the answers either, because ultimately we are all on this journey together. And I do want to pick apart some of what I see as somewhat misguided stuff that I think's out there around spiritual awakening, which tends to focus only on positive thinking and you can do it all. Because ultimately, when you think positive all the time, you're just creating space to feel negative, because you cannot have one without the other.
I love that, because I'm trying to explore that moment, because I have just gotten absolutely fascinated with the laws of the universe, and particularly the law of attraction, which is so phenomenal.
It is.
That I find myself going, stop that negative thought, stop it now.
You're disowning parts. You can't grow with disowning parts of yourself. So we'll definitely explore that. And we'll also look at values. What's your life demonstrating? Because so many of us, we'll get on Facebook, we'll get on Instagram, we'll read the news, and we'll kind of get frustrated and sit in more angst and anger the more stuff we look at, because we're not like that person. We don't have that in our lives. How come they've got that? Oh, I should be doing more, which is all bullshit, and it's just us expecting ourselves to live outside what we truly value, and injecting the beliefs of others into our lives. But ultimately, our lives are demonstrating what we value in every moment. The choices that we're making consciously and unconsciously are determining the life that we have. And the more that we can see and love the life that we've created, the more space we have to create more of what we love, when we can bring an element of consciousness to it. So we'll be looking at that as well.
Yeah, I really like that. And I really want to delve deeply just into what I think is lacking in women these days when you're just talking to mums at school and whatever, which is self-worth, self-love.
And you have so much to bring to that conversation, being a school mum, in inverted commas. I really haven't journeyed that, so that will be really lovely to unpack that with you, and I'm sure that's going to resonate so much with so many women.
I really hope so, because I'm running a few women's circles at the moment, and I see such the gifts in women just going, yes, why do I do that? And yes, I am so worthy of whatever it is.
Yes.
The pleasure, the time, the moment, I don't even know, but I really want women to get back in touch with who they are. Drop the
facade.
Yeah, and drop the shooting and the lists and the, I don't know, worth based on achieving.
Yes.
Rather than
and starting to, and really looking at the language that we use to talk to ourselves, because one thing that I do really value is the use of affirmation, because the reality is, if we are, we're negatively affirming stuff in our lives all the time unconsciously, like I should be doing that, or I need to do that, and adjectives like that are injected things, because when we feel like we should be doing something or need to do something, it's not what we truly feel, it's what we think we should feel. It's when we start to choose words like, I love doing that, or...
I was saying it's almost like a negative affirmation by saying those things. It's almost like we're saying that like an affirmation.
We are, because we're judging ourselves. Because
we're
judging ourselves by having not done something, which ultimately is not something that we want to do anyway, because if we really want to do it, then we would be doing it. So... Yeah. And it's not to say that we can't do those things, and we can, but we can do those things through linking processes, through linking what we want to do with the things that our life demonstrates we are doing, like our highest values, and that kind of goes into the work of neuroplasticity and remyelinating the brain, which is an amazing kind of relatively new area of neuroscience, but it's so enormously powerful for kind of behaviour change, and kind of giving ourselves more of what we want and more of what we desire, through actually retraining ourselves to do it. So we'll unpack a little bit of the practical side of that, and that's really something that I want to bring to our retreats too, is some practical work and some practical tools that allow women to take away from our retreats, so that they're not just a one-day filling of your cup. It's a kind of a takeaway to take into your life and work at, because we all know we go to things and we feel so inspired on that one day, and then because 90% of our life is run by our unconscious mind, we drop back into our old habits. It requires quite a bit of concerted effort to create real change and create lasting change. So we'll look at some techniques that we can use to create that in our lives too.
And the idea really of our retreats was that we felt there was a huge lack in community for a lot of women to access easily and comfortably now, that the tribe or the village that we really recognise we need to raise our families isn't there anymore. I mean, back in the day, and this is the whole concept with women being so exhausted and so run down and not able to give their kids what they want to be, and they've become cranky mum rather than divine mum who gives and receives without any issues, because they're so low on resources. They've got nothing left to give and there's nothing coming back in because there's nobody helping them. All of a sudden, for one of the first times in history, we as women have to literally raise our children for most of the time, for most women, on our own. We no longer have live-in grandparents or parents. We no longer have mothers that help, you know, in extraordinary in-depth. I mean, there's the occasional woman that does, but for the most part, most women are disconnected from their mothers and the amount of help that their mothers give them. And it's certainly, for the most of what I've experienced of women, it's not ever free help, you know, free as in without guilt help. It always comes with bondage of some sort around it being an effort, or I think out of this baby boomer era, there really came this need to break free. You know, I've done that. I don't need to do that again. This is now your journey. So the decisions you've made, you have to live with. It's these real hard-lining, feminine disconnect kind of, I don't know, belief systems that have come out of it. So I find now women in our generation are parenting largely on their own.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're all, I mean, I've been fortunate that I've got quite a lot of support, but I do know that those moments when you really do feel like, surely I'm not supposed to do this all on my own. And so what we really want to look at too is that how has it changed form? Because ultimately, like, nothing really is missing, and things are always evolving, and the reality is, as much as we might judge ourselves for being on our phones or being online too much, the village has really moved from a physical space, in a lot of cases, to an online space. You know, there are so many groups online now, and so many Facebook facilitates so much, as much as we might judge it, so much of that community for women, you know, and that kind of sense of support. And yes, it might not be the same as that hug that you might get or that pat on the back, but for a lot of women it's all we have in a lot of those
still
moments.
An access point, isn't it, to refuel and resource.
That's it. And so what we really wanted to offer was an opportunity to create that village for some women through these podcasts, through the Facebook group, and then through those physical retreats, and really unpack the village and how we can create our own village, and the things that we can do to create that sense of support network, and to see the benefits to our children of creating different networks around them, facilitating for them different relationships to help them grow while giving ourselves the space to nurture and fill our cups.
Yeah, because you can't be all things to one person or any person
No.
at any one time. And historically, this was the whole reason that we would have raised children in a village, was because those children would learn to seek out certain people for the things that they needed, the things they needed to learn, the nurturing or nourishing they needed, the food they needed, whoever it was in the village that represented the best gift or skill in those areas, those children would naturally morph towards and seek out. And therefore the parents or the people involved in that village who weren't as excellent at that could take a step back from that. And so parenting would be shared among people sharing their greatest strengths and their greatest gifts, which is way easier than trying to share the things that you're struggling to share or that you yourself don't have the resources to do or to teach or to nourish or to nurture. So this idea of the village, it just is an extraordinary one where you didn't have to be everything all of the time to anyone.
And we're not supposed to be, and yet we have these, you know, sociological pressures, these stereotypical pressures on us to be all of that, whether we create that ourselves or we take on the belief systems of the society in which we live.
That's right.
But ultimately, we really want to invite you to ask yourself, how can you create your own village? How can you facilitate that for your child? I interviewed recently for Suburban Sandcastles Dr. Anna Rubinstein, the author of The Making of Men, and he's been working as a facilitator for over 30 years of rites of passage retreats, where he takes both boys and girls and their fathers and other kind of significant people in their lives, you know, perhaps uncles or family friends, and really creates an environment to nurture that unique spirit of that child at that really pivotal point in their life as they move from childhood into teenagehood. And he talks a lot in the interview, which I'll post on the Nourishing the Mother the Facebook page, that the most important thing for these kids is going back out into a community, creating a community for the child beyond their parents, because as you'll know, if you've got children who are a little bit older, they often don't want to come to you with their stuff. You know, they want to find a trusted adult that's outside that family unit.
And you want to deliberately place role models in their lives that represent ideals or whatever of what you would like your child to aspire to have access to.
And also that, you know, really how to tune into your own child's unique gifts at a young age and find people around them who can help facilitate that. You know, you might not love what your child loves, and that's okay. You know, it's really okay to own that and to say, you know, like, I don't want to do that all the time with you, but hey, who is this other person in their life that I can, you know, match up to them?
And there's so much community. I feel like as soon as you start looking, there's so much community. Look, even I totally get the online thing, and that's why we're creating this, to create a bigger space. But also, just I would really ask people to look in their local communities. Where is the community? Because I don't see a lack there.
No.
I see an inability sometimes to reach out, or a not knowing of what's there.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it just takes a creating of that space.
That's it.
And I feel like that is actually one of my biggest gifts, is creating community. So if I've ever felt like I don't have a tribe or a community and I'm really seeking that, I have always easily and effortlessly created community. So I created a natural parenting playgroup where my first two were really little, and there wasn't one local to me, and all of a sudden these amazing women came into my lives, and they fueled, some of them are still beautiful friends of mine, and they fueled all sorts of areas of interest for me and my children. And that moved into Nature Kinder, and then we moved into Steiner through that experience, and Steiner playgroups. And then what else have I've created so many community
co-ops.
Oh my gosh, co-ops. Yes, I run a local organic co-op here in Seaford in Melbourne, which if you're interested in, please give me a buzz. We're just a bunch of families that work together to achieve the cheapest organics that we can. What else? Oh gosh, can't even think now. I've created kinder communities. I've created
Working
school
bees.
communities. Yes, I've created that we do a craft circle at school. It's just... It's a gift, and the thing is, if it's there, and even beyond what you create, there's the local, you know, like reading time for kids, where there's always a community of women, and local classes and clubs, and you know,
there's so much
there. Which, if you're heading towards a passion of your child, you're going to meet people that you find connections with yourself, and they expand your capacity to parent and what you can offer your children, and potentially the path that you go on. And even look to your community. Like, I have my sister is incredibly talented artist, and my daughter is really talented, and I'm really not good at drawing and all of that jazz. And so I said to my sister out of the blue, how would you feel about giving my daughter Jade some art classes? And she was like, okay. And so that has worked so beautifully, because every week she goes to my sister's house, her auntie, for 45 minutes while I get the other two home before we have to leave for football. And she has this beautiful art class that fills her cup, connects her with her auntie, beautiful. And then she's taking those skills in to enhance her social capacities at playtimes, because apparently girls, they bond through things like skipping and art. So, you know, if you really want to do some great bonding at playtime at school, art is a fantastic way to do that. And, you know, girls in the class that she would otherwise not have interest with want to come to Jade to seek out the knowledge that she has about art.
Isn't that gorgeous?
It's beautiful. And
also, I mean, that's a great example of creating a win-win scenario, so that your sister is having her cup filled because she's able to practice her skills and feel valued for those.
And she sees, like, my daughter is so good at, you know, giving back affirmation, and she sees that.
Yeah, and you know, your daughter is getting her cup completely filled, and she's learning.
It's the best.
So
who's the tribe? Like, you might have a friend, you might have a mum at school, and it's just the suggestion of putting it out there and allowing yourself, I don't know, vulnerability often for me, connection and community come through willing to be vulnerable, which comes through willing to be authentic.
That's it.
But vulnerability is incredibly scary, and we're going to do a podcast on that. But that is it, isn't it? I feel like there is totally community there. You just have to have the tools and the confidence to access it. And if your stepping stone through that is finding your self-worth, finding yourself and your path and your journey, and having affirmation in that, that's when online really comes in for me, is that really fuels and nourishes those really deep places that we don't have casual conversations around. And that's what this space is about. This space is about creating and extending the tribe so that you can be the best version of you that you can be as a woman, as a mother, as a lover, and as a contributor to your tribe and community, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we really want that in a virtual space. On our Facebook page, Nourishing the Mother, we want lots of interactions and lots of, support and fantastic conversations, and we want to follow whatever it is that's driving you if you want to pull a topic apart more, whatever it is. And we really want then that to morph into a physical space of a women's retreat. So we really hope you're going to take into your next week a total sense of gratitude for the journey that has led you to being who you are right now. And we are absolutely looking forward to you interacting with our Facebook page, Nourishing the Mother, where we would love you to contribute ideas, concepts, things you want to pull apart, stories and interactions, and certainly access us directly.
Yeah, so I'm at suburbansandcastles.com, and our next film night, if you're in Melbourne, is called The Mask You Live In, and that's on the 15th of July. And it's a film that's quite a powerful one. It looks at the narrow representation of masculinity in terms of asking boys and men to be tough and be a man, and how ultimately that harms them, and really unpacks how we can create a healthier kind of upbringing for our boys. So it's going to be a really powerful one.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And if you would like to access my services, Julie Tenner is on naturopathicbirth.com.au for any creative, intuitive counselling services that do specifically focus around parenthood, motherhood, womanhood, diet, nutrition, and birth references.
So until next week, we'll see you then.
Bye.
This has been a production of thewellnesscouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on facebook.com/thewellnesscouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavour to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.